My argument is that INEC as an institution cannot be fundamentally different from other institutions in Nigeria. So if Nigeria is terribly beset by weak institutions, talk about our judicial system, talk about our police system, talk about Nigerian Air Force, talk about the military, talk about even the Central Bank of Nigeria, talk about weak legislature, talk about weak media, weak civil society, to be expecting INEC to be strong and independent, to be an outlier, is expecting too much of them. That's number one. Number two is that if you had Nigerian politicians who, at the eve of 1999, sent thugs to snatch ballot boxes for them, and then at the turn of events, when Nigerians thought they have achieved quite a feat, they sent senior advocates of Nigeria to go to Supreme Court to attempt to snatch ballot boxes for them. At this another turn of events when we're dealing with technology, it will indeed be naive if you don't expect them to send ICT experts working in connivance with people within the system to use technicalities to attempt to start ballot boxes. Let me tell you this for free to this panel and anyone who is listening. The devices we are deploying for Nigeria's 2023 elections cannot pass integrity tests in any serious country. One of the fundamental flaws with the BVAS is that the BVAS is accounting only for the number of successful accreditations. The BVAS is not accounting for the number of attempted accreditations. Why is this important? Because the ABIS data of June 2021 to July 2022 suggests that 50.3% of all rejected voters were from two regions. What happens when on the election morning you see high BVAS authentication rates in some regions and low BVAS authentication rates in some regions? Because the BVAS is not measuring, nobody can prove this data to say, wait a minute, something had gone wrong with the BVAS. We saw it in Anambra elections, we saw it in Osun elections, and what the media always reports is low voter turnout. But from our field reports, having monitored these elections, what we know is that there are substantial number of potential voters who present their INEC-issued PVCs on the election day, and INEC-issued BVAS is not able to allow them to vote. INEC is not taking cognizance of these people. Then you go back to the register of voters. With a compromised voter register, can you be talking about free and fair and credible elections? If the voter register is reading with fake voters, go to the register today, have a copy of it with me. You see voters who have no passports. You see voters who are visibly underage. You see voters who are alien. If politicians have managed to smuggle fictitious names on our register, have managed in some instances to get INEC to print their PVCs, have managed in some instances to get those PVCs issued, and INEC is telling us that they won't be able to use those PVCs, I believe that Nigerians must have to, in my own analysis, subject these systems and processes to multi-stakeholder integrity audit and integrity tests. I have long made this argument. And so I am more disappointed really with the opposition political parties who have looked at these systems and processes and did not query. When they brought up the issue with the previous regime, which is called the card reader, Nigerians did not ask questions about the card reader, and we saw that with the incident from what happened with the card reader. Today, we're deploying BVAS, and the only thing Nigerians know about the BVAS is the thing that INEC says about the BVAS. So INEC has gone on a PR offensive about the BVAS and about the systems as a way to show off confidence, and I don't have issues with that. My problem is that these systems are untested, and where they have been tested, there have been evidences to show that these systems can be compromised. And if you apply Murphy's law, which says that anything that could go wrong will go wrong, then you could begin to see why the energy of young Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, my NSAS generation, is about to be, if we don't subject these systems to integrity tests, to be wasted. Having said that, may I also conclude by reiterating my last point, that for a developing country like Nigeria, there are two critical success factors to winning of elections. One is voter mobilization, and I have seen incredible voter mobilization efforts. But where I find that Nigerians are not investing as much energy is on the systems and the processes their voting decisions will be processed on. Because when you have institutions of government for developing countries that are hobbled by two things, internal compromise and external pressures, then you begin to see that we're not doing as much as we're doing. Today, everybody is praying and hoping that Nigerians turn out impressive elections, but nobody is doing the actual groundwork of insisting that those processes that will help us to turn out elections. If you're going to use the BVAS that is not did not pass integrity test, or that did not even go to integrity test. As at today, what we saw in Osun is that after the elections, INEC does what it calls synchronization of BVAS data. So the synchronization means that Data on the BVAS, if there is any variation between data on the BVAS and the data on the INEC server, there's going to be a synchronization. As of today, ask the 4 leading candidates, none of them can tell you or their agents what those synchronization process is all about, because the synchronization process is not well spelled out. And so that is the process that 1 can become 10, 10 can become 100, and 100 can become 1000. So I am not going to be relying on inshallah and praying to God for Nigeria to turn out elections. What I like doing is to critique the systems and the processes, and if any system can be compromised, we tend to make sure that those systems are not compromised. Finally, INEC is going to be deploying about 528,000 staff, nearly 550,000 staff. That's 6 times the population of Carlton, right? And if you're going to be deploying that staff, and each of these people, in some instances, if you give them systems that can be manipulated, have access. Look at what happened. Some people sent in BVAS reports that were blurry, which means that you can't use the BVAS reports. Some, instead of sending BVAS reports, sent in their selfies. Some, instead of sending BVAS reports, sent in documents that are not the BVAS. So you have a lot of issues around election management. And I repeat that I am not comfortable with the way the candidates and their campaign councils have carried on, especially as it relates to critiquing the systems and the processes that their voting decisions will be. When you tell people to go and pick up their PVCs, for instance, and they go out there and they tell you that this institution is denying them their PVCs, what do you say? Nothing. When you tell people to pick up their PVCs and there are video evidences that PVCs are being burnt, being found in the gutters, being found, and you don't do anything about these things, then when the election results don't turn out the way, you now begin to cry. I like crying ahead of time. Once the milk is spilled, I don't have tears for